Welcome to the latest episode of Beer, Chai, and Future, folks. Today, Mike, what are we talking about today?
Today we are doing a recap of the entire year. You and
Yes, sir.
you and I have spent a lot of time at conferences this year and seen a lot of new and interesting things. So I think it's a good time to recap all of those things.
Yeah, and we like to gossip and we like to just, talk around with people. So, we keep hearing stuff. And we want to bring that all over to you. Well, as much as we can in the amount of time the YouTube videos let us do. So here we go.
All right.
All right, Mike. I think the the weird thing about me was being at the Equip Expo with you, walking around, and we were in the outside area, and then we stopped by a space where they had a big snow plower. Um, and by all means, correct my terminologies because I'll just go through it like I saw it. And it had a big plow in front of it. This plow was broken down into sections. So as the plow went over so this is the whole plow, right? And it goes over the curb, and one section of it lifts up. It goes over to the other side, then it drops back down, and it continues to push. That was kind of cool.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that we don't really cover a lot when we talk is actual mechanical improvements.
Innovations.
Yeah. So yeah, this was cool, and it doesn't lift up; it folds underneath, so that as you go over the curb stop, it then flips back. So that you can continue pushing, but it helps with if you have large parking lots, but you have a bunch of curb stops in the center, you don't have to break up how you actually go over it. And instead of old plows, the entire plow would trip forward. And it's very jarring at like 1 o'clock in the morning when you hit a manhole cover that is, raised just a little bit. It certainly wakes you up. So some mechanical improvements here so that it just trips one section of the plow and then it keeps going and a lot less
Yeah.
jarring for the operator.
That might be a feature, Mike, not a bug if it's waking you up at 1 in the night. It's like good for worker safety.
That's
Like super cool.
that's very true. That's a very programmer way to look at this situation. That's a feature, not a bug.
100%. And maybe on the I think the other benefit is on the liability side, if you are like hitting on curb lines and you're ending up with damage, so you don't have to worry about that anymore.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
that was one cool piece. So the other cool piece we saw again on the hardware side, the mechanical improvement side, was this robot that was going up a slope, and the slope was really steep. And like you had this whole opinion about why they're like turning up a circus here. This is not really how it operates in the real world.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing we're seeing is there are remote control robotics that are capable of holding the slopes much better than previous mowers have been. So it's great to see that that is continuing. And there's lots of different models, whether it's a track mower or whether it has wheels. The wheelbase may just be wider so that it can handle the track. But yeah, you were super impressed with it, but there was one caveat to the thing, and that is that they were demonstrating on a corrugated piece of metal. So there was extra
Yep.
traction available because of the metal being corrugated, as opposed to, let's say, a very slippery, wet, grassy hill. So I think that
Yeah.
while it was impressive, there's still a grain of salt that you need to take that demonstration with.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe you will find that turf at Equip Expo in that booth, and that's the only place that mower would work. um, the other robot we saw next to it, do you remember? Like this was a robot that had like turning wheels, and it was able to change like deck size or something. What was that about?
Yeah, so that's another great innovation. So that's from a company called Zapped, and they are creating a mower that is gas powered. But what it does is it can convert itself from mowing sideways, which mows a 60-inch swath, to being able to turn itself and go through gates or mow only a 36-inch swath. So it has the ability to be multi-directional so that depending on the situation, it can realign itself and be shrink itself down to only 36 inches. So this is amazing that one mower can solve two issues.
So one piece of it is like the deck that sort of turns so that the cross section reduces.
No, so all four wheels will turn so that you take the mower
Oh,
from mowing in a 60-inch swath like this, and then the whole mower
yeah.
turns sideways, and the wheels will now move the mower this direction instead of long ways. So really interesting there.
Well, that's really cool. An operator cannot do something like that, right? Like it's like more for a machine.
I mean, no other machines out there have really four drive wheels on them.
Okay.
Most machines, whether they're stand-ons or whether they're ride-ons, have two drive wheels, so they can only go one direction. And those drive wheels are fit at a fixed point. These drive wheels can move themselves and turn themselves in 360 degrees, so that it allows the machine to operate in any direction.
Very cool. So that means for smaller sites, you need not have a truck that has two mowers on it for different deck sizes. You can do with just one.
Right, and I'm not totally sure how long how much mowing it can do when it's sideways, but it will definitely, if you have gates and fences that you need to go through. So that's what their design is for. They're designing this for large, very rough fields that maybe have really tall turf, and so you don't really see what is underneath of it. But it can transfer and go from one gated section to the next gated section, working itself through the gate without the need of an operator.
Um, Talk about the next mower. Um, you remember the guy who was giving me a hard time on the conference floor?
Yes.
So like talking about conferences and conferences being a great place to go to for people who are not actually buying their stuff, the guy in the booth can be a hazard to talk to. And I found it out like the hard way, but it was really cool. The robot he had over there was nice. Like the weird thing was you actually saw something new with that piece of equipment, and I was not expecting that because like for all rumor robots that we see, I thought like they're all the same.
Yeah, no, this was a great new deployment of equipment, and you're right. I think one thing that we learned as walking through the showroom floor is when you walk up to people holding a camera recording, not everyone is super excited about that.
That's Hey, we were about to give them free social
Oh,
media,
I
like
know.
it's
And everyone doesn't necessarily understand why you're doing that, so we did get some strange looks.
we
But
need Beer Chai Future t-shirts and hats, man. And then
that's
it's like our YouTube channel, bro.
that's what we need for the next conference for sure.
Sorry,
This
go
mower was
on.
interesting because it was a new mower by a company called Crest that has been operating in Europe for decades and has been creating robots for decades. They just launched in the United States like 2 or 3 days before the Equipment Expo this year. So they were brand new. And what they bring to the table that is different than other Roomba mowers is the ability to lay down an invisible fence line without having any hardware. So one of the things that we've talked about before in our robotics discussion is that a drawback of the Roomba mowers is that you need the guide wire. This completely
Yeah.
removes the need for the guide wire, and you simply walk this tool around, and it uses RTK technology to map out the boundaries, and then you don't need to install a guide wire. So this is huge, especially for commercial companies who are concerned about contract length and the amount of upfront investment needed to bury a
Mm.
wire. Now you don't have to bury a wire, so now you don't have to worry if the customer cancels after a year. It's no big deal. You pick up the mower, you move it to a different site, you remap it, and put the mower down again. So these still require a base station, a charging station. They're not something that you throw on the trailer at the end of the day. It still lives on the site, but the improvement of
Installation.
not needing a boundary wire is huge.
Yeah, I think the other robot I was telling you about, the URS robot, Nexmo, I saw them at Lunar Landscape conference, not like at a booth, if I remember it right, but they had their guys there. And it had that gimbal, something on top of the mower where I can say, oh, that's the RTK device. So probably even that one doesn't require you to install a wire. So two new techs rolling out that don't require you to install that wire. So of course the installation cost goes down, the friction goes down, and the utility of the hardware significantly goes up. I don't know if there is a higher cost to those machines. There should be maybe even like a running cost on a month-on-month basis because they would have an RTK device operating there.
Yeah, I think so. We need to investigate into the pricing a little bit more.
Yeah. But yeah, those, so we did like the robot episode 6 months back, and we were not really talking about this technology back then, but now it's here. So that's really cool to see how it evolved in the short history of this channel.
That's right. And the other big improvement was Toro came out with a little Roomba mower that has a camera on top of it, which is the
Oh,
only.
you saw it?
Yes, yes, absolutely. And it's awesome because it also does not need guide wires because of the camera technology. So a lot of big improvements on the little Roomba mowers. Like you said, just in 6 months.
Yeah, that's really cool. Um, that's really cool. And so yeah, do make some time to go to conferences in 2023 if you haven't done that before. At least one show. Do at least one show. You don't have to be at every one of them, but do at least one.
Absolutely.
That's it from our side for year in review. Appreciate you guys tuning in.